come up from small beginnings,
Yeah.
but that's where you start. When you start a church with Sunday school, you have the children coming. Then later, you'll have the parents attending. And then from there, you can look for a place to put up a building.
Because there you have families.
You have families. So you need more space now.
Right.
So you can acquire somewhere, put up a building, and start a church. Reverend J.H. Smith started the church at Banks, which is near to Yorktown.
Sorry, Auntie. So the church at Yorktown with where Pastor Goodman was. What became of Pastor Goodman?
He went back to the States.
Oh, Pastor Goodman went back to the States, and
Yes.
Pastor Gerald Smith
Yes.
went to Yorktown. So he was the pastor at Yorktown now, and then he established another work in Bank.
Banks. Yes. And that church was served by Brother, we refer to him as Brother Rattray.
Rattray.
That is Evangelist Errol Rattray's father. And they work at Banks for a while. And then the last pastor I know that was there was Lassell Edwards. Yeah, before the United Brethren discontinued the work at Banks. Ask about the first conference.
Yes. Tell us about the first conference.
The first conference of the United Brethren in Christ was held at Mount Pleasant Church in the east, up the hills. And this was in August of 1950.
August 1950.
1950 was the first conference with Bishop A.M. Johnson from the United States Head Office presiding. And if you look in some of our older hymn books, you'll see that name, A.M. Johnson. He was the one who presided at that conference. At that time, Reverend O'Sullivan was on furlough, and Reverend Fred Stevens, and his wife Hazel was the acting superintendent. But Reverend O'Sullivan returned to that first conference. At least, although he was on furlough, he attended the conference, and some other friends with him. He came back with his friends, Reverend A.A. Grogan and another Johnson, which is just Reverend Johnson. So it was two Johnsons at that conference, Mount Pleasant. It was a new experience for us as members of the Mount Pleasant Church. Because this was the first conference, we didn't know anything about conference before. And so it was a new experience for us. We learned a lot, and we had good fellowship. And the thing about it is this, that each member of the church was asked to host one of the delegates, because we had delegates from Porus then, it's now Whitney Turn, and we have delegates from Craighead and other of the churches, because we're just coming into the thing now. And so this was 5 years after the work started in Jamaica.
So Auntie, so they traveled to Mount Pleasant, and they stayed with members of the church who kept them. How long was the conference held? How many days? You remember?
I think it was 3 days, business and everything.
Business and the conference.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so the members of the church was asked to
to host
the delegates. So we had the privilege of good fellowship,
Yes.
getting to know each other,
Yes.
because we were just meeting some of these folks for the first time. So it was really a good fellowship at that conference. The function of the church today. What must I say? We are in a new era. Things have changed over the years, but ministry continues. We don't walk through communities anymore, most of the time, where we meet people on the street or see them in their backyard, where we can stop and say hello and have a little chat with them, and by so doing, share the gospel. You might see a farmer going to his farm, and you can talk with him.